Hi friends, welcome to Civil Engineering Lectures by Civil Engineering Department of Government Polytechnic Kottagudem. Today's topic is the analysis of singly reinforced beams under limit state method. In the previous lectures, we were discussing about the various parameters and the various concepts of limit state method, like the basics of the limit state method. We have already discussed about the differences between the three methods of working stress method, ultimate load method, and limit state method. And you have also understood the basic stress block parameters, and you have also understood what is the definition of concrete and plain cement concrete, and also you have understood the definition of reinforced cement concrete also. And the basic differences between the working stress method, ultimate load method, and limit state method. So as a quick mode of revise, let me just tell you that working stress method is based upon the permissible stresses or the factor of safeties which are applied on the stresses, so that the stresses or the strengths of the members or the stresses because of the loads that are going to come on the structure are reduced by dividing with the factors called as factor of safeties. And it is seen that the stresses in the future will not reach the ultimate stresses of that members by designing the members to the permissible stresses. And then you have the method of and there is one important concept and one important assumption which was made in working stress method. Working stress method is an elastic method which considers the elastic stress strain curve of concrete, but actually in reality the stress strain curve of concrete is not elastic. There are deviations in the stress strain curve of concrete. It becomes parabolic or curvilinear up to some point, and then it behaves linearly or in a straight line after some value of strain. So the true stress strain curve is not considered, whereas it is assumed that it is truly elastic, and the linear shape of the stress strain curve is considered there. And moving on, in the ultimate load method, we have seen that load factors are being used which were applied to the loads, and it is seen that the loads are exaggerated, and the structure is designed for higher loads, though those loads are never going to come onto the structure in the future. So it results in a highly uneconomical design. But the case is that here it considers the true stress strain curve of concrete, but there are lots of drawbacks in this method also. So later on, limit state method has come into picture, where limit state method was addressing many problems which are not being solved in the other two methods. So limit state method was working out a good designs for in various other countries also. So limit state method is based on the probabilistic method. So basing upon probability and acceptance values, probabilistic acceptable probabilities which are derived from the experiments, basing upon these values this method is generated. So there are few terms called characteristic strength, characteristic loads, and so on and so forth, which we have already studied in one of our lectures of limit state method concepts. So characteristic strength is the value which gives a probability, 95% probability that the design strength or the load will not fail. So it gives a probability of 95%. So it says that there could be a chance of 5% of failing that value. So it gives us a probability of 95% acceptance probability. So basing upon the probability which is being accepted by IS 456 2000 of value 95% by following the normal distribution curve or Gaussian curve. So normal distribution curve or Gaussian curve was actually predicting these random variables, because these loads and the strengths are not going to be the same throughout. So that is why these two termed as random variables, and these two random variables are statistically studied, and they are distributed in the form of a graph called as normal distribution curve or Gaussian curve. You have we already discussed, and it was already shown in the previous lectures. Just as a continuation of the other lectures, we are just peeping into the previous lectures also, and we are just revising through them so that this lecture becomes easy for you, as it is a continuation of the previous lecture. So that Gaussian curve or the normal distribution curve has clearly shown you how the strength are to be considered, how the target strengths and how the target loads are to be decided, and then how the design loads and the design strengths are to be arrived at. The standard deviation was also playing very important role in the final design values. Why? Because these are random variables, so there will be a deviation in those values which are going to come onto the structure in the future or the design time. And you have also studied about the stress strain curve of the individual materials, the two friends, the story of two friends. RCC is nothing but the story of two friends, cement and concrete, which are bonded together. Sorry, concrete and steel reinforcement, which are bonded together. These two members are are having two different strengths. So once they are clubbed together and they are placed into picture, so they start behaving very strongly. So whatever high loads which are coming onto the structures, those loads can be easily withstanded by this material. So RCC was preferred compared to the other materials. So we have studied about the stress strain curve of concrete, and we have also studied about the stress strain curve of steel, the actual stress strain curves of steel, how the actual stress strain curve of steel is. The main feature of these two materials is that concrete is strong in compression, so it will be taking the stresses which are uh, coming because of the compressive loads or the loads which are causing compressive stresses, whereas steel is strong in tension, so it would be taking the stresses which are developed in the tensile nature. So one friend will be taking the load which stress it is stronger in, and the other one takes the other stress which the other material is stronger in. So this way we have studied about the stress strain parameters, because the stress strain curves are to be studied thoroughly, so that you can easily understand the stress block parameters, which are going to actually make you understand the concept of limit state method. So we have studied about the stress strain curves also, and we have seen that the actual stress strain curve of mild steel was studied, which was accompanied with so many points right there. You have seen the proportionality limit, the elastic limit, the upper yield point, the lower yield point, the ultimate point, and the break point. So this graph was being a little complicated because ductile material undergoes a lot of changes because it is a ductile one. So all these points were also being discussed, and the idealized curve which was considered by IS 456 is also seen. You have also seen the stress strain curve of concrete, which was idealized into a form into two parts, which the one part is the parabolic one and the other one is the rectangular part. And you have also understood what is the compressive strength termed as in IS 456. It is termed as FCK, characteristic compressive strength it is called as. This characteristic compressive strength is achieved by the cube tests. The cube tests are being done, and these cube tests will be giving you the value of characteristic compressive strength, FCK. So this is denoted by the grade of concrete is denoted by M20 or M15 and so on, where M stands for the mix and the number beside will account for the characteristic compressive strength of units megapascal, Newton per mm square. So these cube strengths, by conducting these cube strength, you will be getting the characteristic compressive strength value. And you have seen that there were assumptions also which were made in the concept of limit state, where limit state was again divided into two parts: the limit state of collapse and the limit state of serviceability. This is one of the major advantages of limit state method, because limit state method will also account for the serviceability criteria, because once the structure is found violating the serviceability norms, it says that it gives you an indication that the structure is not going to bear the loads anymore, and its service is being finished, and the time for which the structure has been constructed is also has reached the limit state, and so that you get a clear idea for dismantling the structure and going for the new one. So limit state method provides for the serviceability criteria, and it also provides for the collapse. So limit state of collapse and limit state of serviceability are the two criteria which you will be dealing with, and you will be designing members in limit state of collapse and limit state of serviceability also. So in that way you have you read about the concrete, and you have seen that the assumptions of limit state of collapse were also being addressed, and then there you have found that the portion or the strain which is corresponding to the parabolic part, the end of parabolic part is 0.2% of the strain, and limit state of collapse was also assuming that the ultimate strain in concrete is 0.0035. So this was about the stress strain curve of concrete, which was actual and which is being used in the IS 456 2000. And now when it comes to the case of steel, the curve of mild steel was a bit complex, and we have already discussed about it. And then when it comes to the idealized one, there are now two curves, which are the cold working bars and the hot working bars. So the cold working bars, like mild steel, which were having a few definite yield points. So the yield point is being considered, and beyond the yield point the line becomes very straight. So the study and the idealized one is very simple, and it can be easily studied by just seeing the graph. Whereas when it comes to the case of the hot worked bars, where for the HYSD bars or the higher grades, for which there is no proper specific yield point, for that you have to draw a line parallel to the initial line, the elastic zone line, parallel one, at a strain of 0.2%, which is called as the proof strain, and the stress corresponding to this stress is called as the proof stress. Now this stress is taken as the yield stress because it was not having a specific yield stress value or an yield point. So this stress is taken as the yield stress value, and the design process is continued using this value. So this was about the stress strain curve of concrete and steel. And then you have studied about the stress block parameters by using these stress strain curves, which are mounted onto the beams cross section, which are studied onto the beams cross section, and there you have come across the terms called as the neutral axis, and then you have come across the term called the depth of neutral axis, and then you understood how the compressive force, the total compressive force is being found, and also the total tensile force. And one of the important point what you have understood is the FCK value, which is called as the characteristic compressive strength of concrete. That value is reduced to 0.67 FCK, which was accounting for the size effect. As a small cube is deciding the compressive strength of concrete, and you cannot just rely upon that value, as in the real constructions you will be nowhere finding out a small cube, whereas you will be finding large structural elements such as a column, a beam, and a slab. So value which was corresponding to a small test cube or a cube cannot just decide the strength of the value. So the strength of this can be furthermore decreased as the size increases. So this size effect is being accounted, and 33% strength loss is taken, and only 67% of the strength is being considered. So that 67% is being seen on the screen, saying that is 0.67 FCK. And furthermore, this 0.67 FCK was decreased into 0.45 FCK or 0.446 FCK, which was rounded off to 2 decimals by 0.45 FCK. This value has arrived by dividing that FCK 0.67 FCK by the partial safety factor of concrete. So partial safety factors will come into picture in limit state method. We have seen that difference with the other working stress method and the ultimate load method. So this partial safety factor is different for different materials. You will be applying this for loads, you will be applying this for the design strengths and everywhere. So for concrete, the partial safety factor is 1.5 in limit state of collapse. So this 1.5 is divided, and you got the value of 0.45 FCK. So that is the strength value or design strength of concrete. And whereas the design strength of steel is considered, you have seen that the Fy value, because you will be testing a steel rod in the laboratory and the same steel rod is being placed in the actual construction, so there will be no place for the size effect to come into picture here. So there is no further deduction of this Fy, the yield strength of steel, and but the only difference is that you are designing it in the limit state method, so you have to divide with the partial safety factor of the material for steel. So the partial safety factor for steel is 1.15, so by dividing that value you got the value of 0.87 Fy. So these were the values, design strength values of steel and concrete. And the other stress block parameters, you have seen the centroid of the compressive force, where it is acting and everywhere. So this was what has happened in the previous lectures. So as this is the continuation of the lectures of the previous ones, so we have just recollected or revised what has happened in the previous lectures, and now moving on to the design of singly reinforced beam analysis. Now firstly, what are the types of RCC beams? You have to study what are the types of RCC beams. So first one is your singly reinforced beam, and the second one is your doubly reinforced beam, and the third one is your singly or doubly reinforced flanged beams. So what you can understand from the names is that first one, the reinforcement is singly, for the second one the reinforcement is doubly, and for the third one there are flanged beams. So what this singly reinforced beam says you is that the reinforcement is provided only on one side, that is the tension side. So this is your singly reinforced beam. Doubly reinforced beam, the reinforcement is provided in both the compression zone as well as in the tension zone. So this is about your doubly reinforced beam. And third one is your flanged beams. These two are the rectangular beams. This one is a flanged beam, which are the shape of a T or L. You will be having flanges. For example, if you see the alphabet T, you are having a flange at the top, and similarly for this you have a flange at the bottom. So that is why these beams are called as flanged beams. So both the singly reinforced beam and doubly reinforced beam, these two will account for the rectangular beam. So initially the classification must have been like this: rectangular beams and then flanged beams. Under rectangular beams you have singly reinforced beam, doubly reinforced beam both, and under flanged beams also you are having singly and doubly both. So here the shape of the beam is rectangular. Now in this lecture you will be studying about the singly reinforced beam alone, the analysis, the part 1, the first phase of analysis of singly reinforced beam you will be learning in this lecture. Now as we move on, singly reinforced beam is a simply supported beam or slabs reinforcing steel bars are placed near the bottom of the beam or slabs, where they are most effective in resisting the tensile stresses. As I have just told you, the steel bars will be provided in the tension zone, and we very well know that the tension zone will be coming at the bottom of the beam. So this bottom is the effective zone for resisting the tensile stresses. So that is why there you will be placing the steel rods so that they effectively participate in taking the tension. So that is the meaning of the singly reinforced beam. You have singly reinforced beam, simply supported. It can be a simply supported beam or a slab. It can be a cantilever beam, it can be a cantilever slab, or it can be a continuous beam or a continuous slab, whatever it is. But the difference is that the singly reinforcement is accounting for the reinforcement placed near the bottom, only near the bottom of the beam or slab. So that is why it is called as your singly reinforced beam. The bottom part is the most effective part in resisting the tensile stresses. As I have told you, the beam will be bending this way, so in the bottom the layers will be expanding, so here you will be getting tension, and at the top what happens is you will be getting compression. So the top zone is your compression, the bottom zone is your tension zone. Now when you move on to the next slide, you can see here, see if you are seeing the longitudinal section, this is the longitudinal section, and this is your cross section, this is your cross section of a simply supported beam. So you can clearly see in this picture that at the top you are getting compression, so there is no steel rods placed. So you will be having neutral axis like this, neutral axis, this is your neutral axis, neutral axis. So neutral axis, the region above the neutral axis is your compression zone, and below the neutral axis the region is called as your tension zone. So you can see in the figure, in the compression zone there is no reinforcement provided, whereas in the tension zone where lots of tension will be coming, so there you are providing the steel reinforcement. So this steel reinforcement, when you are seeing from this side, you can see only the diameter. Here you can see only one rod, but there will be rods staying parallel to this, so you cannot see those steel rods in this view. So that is why those rods are shown, you can see in this view, which is your cross section. So you can see that suppose the tension zone is here, you have provided the steel reinforcement. So this diagram will clearly explain you what is a singly reinforced beam is. The reinforcement which is provided only in the tension zone. Singly reinforced beam does not mean to say that there is only one reinforcement. The meaning of singly reinforced beam is that the reinforcement is placed only in the zone of, only in one zone, that is your tension zone, the most effective tension zone. So only one zone you are having the steel rods. This total is called as your total depth, whereas the depth from the top to the center of the rods is called as your effective depth. This is your effective depth, which is given by the term small d. This is your effective depth. Top width you can see b. These are the two supports, it is being simply supported. And next, if you see, this is a reinforcement in a cantilever beam. So cantilever beam, what happens is the tension comes at the top, because the bending will happen this way. For this, the bending will happen this way. So the tension will be coming at the top and compression will be coming at the bottom. Compression is coming at the bottom, tension is coming at the top. That is why the steel rods are placed at the top. You can see here at the top you are finding the steel rod. So for cantilever, this will be your neutral axis, and this will be your tension zone, and this will be your compression zone. So at that, in the tension zone you are seeing the steel rods, because by nature of steel, which is ductile, it has to take tension, so definitely they have to be placed in the tension zone so that they will be effective in taking the tension. So in the cantilever, the main difference is that you are seeing the tension reinforcement at the top, because the tension will be coming at the top. Similarly, you have the total depth, and then you have the effective depth from this to this. So this is what is your effective depth, which is shown here, effective depth, and then the clear cover or the clear distance, and then you are having the column reinforcement just joining with the beam. Here you can see this is the junction reinforcement. So this also you will be studying in the next lectures, how the joining is taken place at the junctions. So this is about the reinforcement in the simply supported beam and the cantilever beam. The compression and tension, compression at the top, tension at the bottom for simply supported. For cantilever beam, tension at the top and compression at the bottom. So the steel rods will be placed at the top in the cantilever beam. So this is one of the important interview questions, and you will be having so many questions on this also, where the reinforcement is placed. So you have to pay a lot of attention in when you study the reinforcement detailing, and where the reinforcement is effectively placed, and so on. So next, when we move on, so the analysis of singly reinforced beam, what is the meaning of analysis? So what you are going to finally find out in carrying out the analysis of singly reinforced beam? So what is the aim of our analysis? So the ultimate aim of our analysis is to find out the ultimate moment of resistance of the section. You have to find out the ultimate moment of resistance of the section. So once you find out the ultimate moment of resistance of the section, that means you have properly analyzed the singly reinforced beam. So analysis will be completed once you arrive at this value, the ultimate moment of resistance value. So what is this moment of resistance? So you can see, you already know the basic definition of moment. A moment is nothing but the force into distance. The force into distance is your moment. So you have to find out the force and the distance, the perpendicular distance. Again, the distance you have to be very clear about. This is the this is the distance which is actually making rotation. See, if for about certain point, you have to consider this distance. If this is the force, you have to find out the perpendicular distance. So the perpendicular distance when multiplied with the force will give you the moment, because it will create moment will create a rotatory motion. It will rotate it this way along this point, so it will be rotating it. So moment is a force into distance by the definition, the basic definition of moment which you have learned in your engineering mechanics. So your task in analysis of singly reinforced beam is to find out the ultimate moment of resistance. You will be learning what is this moment of resistance is. I am just telling you what is the basic definition of moment. So here you can see the formula for moment of ultimate moment of resistance is also given here, where you see that Cu into Z and Tu into Z. What is this C and what is this T? You are already well acquainted with the values of Cu and Tu, where C is the ultimate compressive force and Tu is the ultimate tensile force. So this term D is sometimes called as lever arm. In one of our lectures where you have already went through the term called lever arm. Lever arm is the distance between the forces which are going to form a couple. The distance between the forces which are going to form a couple for resisting some moment. So that distance in the lectures, if you remember, I have told you that this lever arm is D minus 0.42 XU. 0.42 XU is your lever arm Z. 0.42 XU is the place where the compressive force will be acting from the top. So you have to deduct that value D minus 0.42 XU, such that you get this is the overall depth, the effective depth minus 0.42 XU. This gives you the distance between the two forces, the compressive force and the tensile force. So analysis of singly reinforced beam is nothing but arriving at the value of ultimate moment of resistance. Now what is this ultimate moment of resistance? You see, the moment of resistance of the concrete section is the moment of couple. You have to underline this. The couple formed by the total tensile force T and the steel acting at the center of gravity of reinforcement. I have told you the tensile force will be acting at the center of gravity of the reinforcement. That is why we had no calculations for finding out the point of application of this tensile force. If you remember, in the previous lectures we have already discussed, and I have already clearly mentioned you where this tensile force is acting. If you remember, I have told you that force is vector. So there is every need for you to find out what is the value of this force and where is this force acting at. So you have to be very clear about the point of application also. So this point of application of the tensile force will be at the center of gravity of the reinforcement. So that is why there were no hectic calculations for finding out the center of gravity. Whereas for the case of this compressive force, we had a calculation, compressive force, because compressive force is comprised of the parabolic part and the rectangular part. The graph of the stress strain curve or the stress curve is little different, the diagram. So you had for concrete the two parts, the parabolic part and the rectangular part. So you had to consider the force values in both of them, and you have taken the average and then you divided with the cross sectional areas, so that you got the total compressive force, and also you found out the centroid by applying the mechanics concepts of centroid, and you found out the centroid to be the point of application of total compressive force in the concrete. So the difference between these two compressive forces is the distance between compressive force and tensile force. The distance which is multiplied by the respective forces will give you the moment of resistance. See, the moment of resistance, here you are seeing the term resistance. We have just understood what is moment from the concepts of mechanics. Now what is this resistance? Why is this resistance asked? See, you must have learnt about the bending moments in the strength of materials chapters or strength of materials subject. So because of the external loads, there will be a moment created called as your bending moment. So this bending moment will be actually causing the beam to bend. But as a designer of reinforced cement concrete structures, you should not allow this bending. That means you have to counteract, you have to create a resistance for this bending moment. So this resistance for this bending moment is given by the couple formed by this concrete and reinforcement, the compression force and tension force. These two will be forming a couple. Couple by definition is nothing but moment. It will be having the same units of moment, the force into distance. So this couple which is formed by the concrete and the tension and reinforcement in the form of compressive force and tensile force, when the forces multiplied by the distance, the lever arm will form the counteracting moment. So that is why this moment created by the couple, if you see the term couple here, couple, so this couple will be counteracting this bending moment because of the external loads. That is why this couple is called as the moment of resistance. Because of the loads you will be getting the bending moment, because of the external loads you will be getting the bending moment. This bending moment will be trying to disturb the equilibrium of the beam, so this has to be resisted. So this bending moment has to be resisted in terms of moment only. So how the moment is generated, how the moment of resistance is generated? It is generated by the couple of created by the compression force and tension force. So that is why this is termed as moment of resistance. So finally the external load action is being stopped by the internal actions which were created by the compressive force and tensile forces. So in the same form, in the moment form it is acting, so it is reacting in the moment form again. Both are in the moment form. That is why it is called as the reacting moment is called as the moment of resistance, because the cross section of the member is offering resistance. That is why it is called as moment of resistance. Now when you move on, in this moment of resistance you are having again the two, the ultimate moment of resistance and the other one is your limiting moment of resistance. So let us first discuss about the ultimate moment of resistance. What is this ultimate moment of resistance? Is that, see, you can clearly see here, this is your lever arm, this is your lever arm, you can see here, this is your lever arm, and if you see the formula for moment, here you are seeing the force, this is the force multiplied by the lever arm. So this is, what is this? The lever arm, force multiplied by the lever arm. Now here you are seeing 0.36 FCK BXU. 0.36 FCK here is accounting for the stress value in concrete. You understood the final compressive force. 0.36 FCK BXU is nothing but the compressive force. That means the stress multiplied B into XU is the area. Stress multiplied by area is giving you the force. So 0.36 FCK BXU is nothing but the compressive force multiplied by the lever arm, which is giving you the ultimate moment of resistance. So this ultimate moment of resistance can be also calculated by considering the steel tensile force as well. See, this is the ultimate moment of resistance formula found by using the compressive force, but you can use the steel formula also, you can use the tension force also. Why? Because these both are having the same magnitude but they are opposite in direction. That is why a couple is formed. When two forces which are of same magnitude but opposite in direction are separated by a distance, this will form a couple. So that is why you can either consider the compression force or you can either consider the tensile force for finding out the ultimate moment of resistance. So one formula is accounting for the compressive force, and the other formula here, if you see 0.8 FST is nothing but 0.87 Fy. You can see here 0.87 Fy is the tensile stress in concrete multiplied by area of steel. You have to multiply with the corresponding area. You are using the stress in steel, you are multiplying with the area of the steel. Now the stress into area will become force. That force when multiplied by the lever arm, the same lever arm is continuing. See, the lever arm is not going to change because the distance between the two is always the same. So the lever arm when multiplied, you are getting the moment of ultimate moment of resistance. So ultimate moment of resistance is nothing but the formulas of the compressive force and the tensile forces multiplied by the corresponding distance between those two forces. That is why that force, that distance is called as your lever arm, ultimate moment of resistance. Now next you have limiting moment of resistance. Now what is this limiting moment of resistance? Limiting moment of resistance is that there is always a limit, there is always a maximum value of this moment of resistance. As you keep on increasing the load, the cross section cannot develop the resistance continuously. So what happens is that here you have a limit for this resistance also. You have a limit here. So what that limit is, you can see here the limiting moment of resistance is given by, according to the clause, corresponds to the condition defined by the equation. So what you are seeing here is the formula for limiting moment of resistance is not changing, but what you are seeing is that the XU, in place of XU you are having the value of XU max. See, if you see in this formula the same thing, you are seeing XU here, you are seeing only XU here in the formulas here. I'll just erase this so that you can view the formula clearly. See, you are seeing only XU here in this. Similarly in steel also you are seeing XU here. So the same formulas, when in place of XU, if you are substituting XU max, that means the maximum depth of neutral axis, that formula of moment of resistance will be called as your limiting moment of resistance. That means you are just replacing the value of XU with your XU max. So if you are replacing it with XU as XU max, then the formula is turning out to be limiting. That means the moment of resistance corresponding to the maximum depth of neutral axis is called the limiting moment of resistance or the maximum moment of resistance. So now you can see the limiting moment of resistance values for the other. See, if you see XU max values you already know. The values of XU max we have discussed in the previous slide. Again we will be discussing the values of XU max, like 0.53D is XU max value, 0.53D. I will be telling you, I will be revising how this XU max values have come. 0.48D, 0.46D. You have the values for different grades of steel. If you remember in the previous lecture I have told you for finding out these ultimate maximum values of depth of neutral axis, what we have did, and in the next slides you will be understanding how these values have come, and these values were also discussed in the previous lecture. So if you substitute those XU max values in the equation, you will get for Fe 250 the mu limit or the limiting moment of resistance is 0.148 FCK BD square, and for Fe 450 it is 0.138 FCK BD square, and for Fe 500 it is 0.133 FCK BD square. So these values remain very important for you for the limiting moment of resistance or the maximum or the ultimate moment of resistance. How this moment of resistance, ultimate moment of resistance has come into picture? When you replace the term XU with your XU max and you substitute the XU max values correspondingly in the formula, and when you simplify them you get these values. This is very easy and important also. So these are the maximum resistance which can be offered by a cross section. If you notice properly, what you can see is that these are limiting moment of resistance values are dependent on XU max, and this XU max value is again dependent on the grades of steel. Fe 250, Fe 450, Fe 500, these are nothing but the grades of steel. So the moment of resistance, the final moment of resistance is dependent on the grade of steel. Why this is happening here is the grade of steels will play an important role because steel is a ductile material, so its failure is always accompanied with a caution. It cannot suddenly fail, whereas the failure of concrete is brittle, so it fails all of a sudden. So you have to avoid a sudden failure, and you should always look forward for a ductile failure which is accompanied with a caution. If you see the structures, the old structures where people are still living, you can see the steel rods which are easily visible under the slab. In the room, if you see the steel rods are being visible, the concrete below the steel rods have already been cracked, and you see the concrete falling down there. So that means the structure has not completely failed, but the steel rods which are coming out of the structural member tells that it has reached the limit state of serviceability, or the failure is in the very near future. So it is accompanied with the caution. So by looking at the room steel rods which are visible outside, you can know that, or you can sense that there is something going to happen in the near future. So you will try to just do the tests on it, such that is it the failure because of the completion of the duration of the structure, or the failure is because of any other problems in the workmanship during the construction. So the failure which is accompanied with the steel is a cautioned failure. So that is why you are making the steel to fail. So that is why the limiting moment of resistance or the maximum depth of neutral axis are everything based on the grade of steel, the grades of steel Fe250, Fe450 and Fe500. So this is about limiting moment of resistance. So this is the limiting depth of neutral axis which we have seen. I'm just revising that. XU, limiting depth of neutral axis, is first you have to find out the limiting depth of neutral axis, which is nothing but the XU. Limiting depth of neutral axis is nothing but your XU max, the maximum depth of neutral axis which is allowed. So this is your depth of neutral axis, XU max. This is your XU max here. So you have to find out this depth. So for finding out this depth, we have used this triangle, and we have used this triangle. We have used the top triangle and we have used the bottom triangle. Why we have used the top triangle is, top triangle, you know this ordinate as 0.0035, and you know this depth as XU max, which you are going to find out. And you doesn't know this value, sorry, you know this value also, because the total depth is small d. So this depth will be small d minus XU max. This value if you subtract, you will get this value, small d minus XU max. And the ultimate strain in steel is taken as 0.87 Fy Es by 0.002. This is also one of the assumptions made in limit state of collapse, because the ultimate strain in steel is very difficult to find out, because you cannot wait when this failure point is happening in ductile material, because the failure curve keeps on going. You cannot figure out where this ultimate strain is coming, where the ultimate failure point is happening. So after yielding, the graph of the stress strain curve of steel will be continuing. So it is very difficult. So it is being assumed. That is why it is being assumed in limit state method. It is assumed as 0.87 Fy by Es plus 0.002. So considering these two triangles, why we are considering these two triangles, there is no need to explain to you again. We are considering this bottom triangle because we want steel to fail. That is why we are considering the steel strain, ultimate strain. Applying the concept of similar triangles for the respective triangles shown to you, and placing the sides in proportion and doing the all calculations, the only unknown what you have is XU max. You will be getting XU max in terms of D. XU max will be getting in terms of D. So you can see here, this is the diagram showing the values again. See XU max for the limiting depth of neutral axis. I have shown you by considering the similar triangles. You can see this formula, similar triangles, by placing the sides in proportion and applying the process of cross multiplication, you will be getting this You can see the strain in concrete here, and you can see the ultimate strain in steel here, and the XU max value is depend upon the depth. You will be having XU max values related to the effective depth of the concrete. So this slide is again showing you the same the values by considering the strain in steel. Why we are considering the strain in steel is also an important point to be noted. So the ultimate or the maximum depth of neutral axis is always dependent on the depth of the beam, effective depth of the beam. So for Fe 250 it is 0.53, for Fe 415 it is 0.48, for Fe 500 it is not this, so there is a mistake in this, it is 0.46. You have to make this change. This is 0.46. I made this correction in the previous lecture also. So XU max, which is the ultimate or the maximum depth of neutral axis, and then you have the actual depth of neutral axis. You have to find out the actual depth of neutral axis also, XU, which is termed as your X suffix U. Previous it was XU max in the previous case, the limiting depth of neutral axis or maximum depth of neutral axis. So this is your actual depth of neutral axis. Now this actual depth of neutral axis is found by I have told you, by equating the compression force equal to the tensile force. The compression force must be equal to the tensile force. So once the compressive force is equated to tensile force, compressive force is 0.36 FCK BXU and tensile force is 0.87 FY AST. When you equate this, you have this term XU, which can be found out from the known values. You know the grade of steel, you know the area of steel, the number of bars will be given. You also know the width of the beam, you also know the grade of concrete. So once you know these values, you can easily find out XU, which is nothing but the depth of actual neutral axis. The actual neutral axis is found here. The actual depth of neutral axis is found. So you know the maximum depth of neutral axis and you know the actual depth of neutral axis. So the first step in the analysis of singly reinforced beam is that you have to find out these two depths. One is the actual depth of neutral axis and second one is the maximum depth of neutral axis. The maximum depth of neutral axis is the standard values which are given in the table there. In the previous slide you can see in the table where you can find out the maximum depth of neutral axis, which is dependent on the known value. Small d will be given, so you will get the maximum depth of neutral axis from the table. And for finding out the actual depth of neutral axis, you will be equating the compression force equal to tension force, and by using this formula you will be getting the actual depth of neutral axis. Once these two values are found, then you will start comparing. So comparing the values of XU and XU max. So you have here the various types of sections, that are the under reinforced section, balanced section and over reinforced section. You have three. So when the XU, which is nothing but the actual depth of neutral axis, is less than the maximum depth of neutral axis, then that section is termed to be under reinforced section. And when the balanced section, when XU is equal to XU max, that means the actual depth of neutral axis is equal to the maximum depth of neutral axis, then that section is called as your balanced section. When the actual depth of neutral axis is greater than the maximum depth of neutral axis, then that section is termed as over reinforced section. That means reinforcement is kept beyond the limit. Under reinforced section means the reinforcement is kept below the limit. Balanced section, the reinforcement is placed at the optimum values. All the values are optimum here in the balanced section. Whereas for over reinforced section, the reinforcement is provided in excess. So that is why it is termed as your over reinforced section. So what you have learned till now is, in the analysis of singly reinforced beam, the analysis means you have to find out the moment of resistance. So there are two types of moment of resistance here, the limiting moment of resistance and the ultimate moment of resistance. So basically the term moment of resistance means the resistance which is offered by the cross section of the concrete in response to the external actions. The external actions will be creating the bending moment. So this bending moments, the action is in the form of a moment. So the resistance must be generated in the same form. So the compression force and tension force which are taken by the two friends, concrete and steel, are generating a couple which is nothing but a reacting moment. This reacting moment will be counteracting the bending moment which is coming because of the external load. So that is why this moment, which is accompanied or accounted by the couple formed by the compressive force and tensile force, is called as the moment of resistance. So this moment of resistance has to be found out in the analysis. So this moment of resistance will be found out only when you know what type of section is that beam is coming to be. So for that you have to check the values of xu and xu max. So you find out the value of xu, which is nothing but the actual depth of neutral axis, and also the value of xu max, which is the maximum depth of neutral axis given in the respective tables previously. So by doing those calculations you will get the values of these two. Once the values of these two are found, you will start comparing the values, and on the comparison basis the types of sections are termed as the under reinforced section, balanced section, and over reinforced section. So once you arrive at what section, what type of section is that beam is falling under, then you can find out the moment of resistance. So this is about the analysis of singly reinforced beam using limit state method. This is a part 1, and you will be seeing the next part of calculation of moment of resistance by considering these sections in the next lecture. Thank you for watching the video.